All right, friends, let's get to it. Another video, another day. Here's my topic for you. Here are some common mistakes if you are a new real estate investor that I want you to avoid. I kind of thought through this. I said, hey, what are some of these common rookie mistakes that I've seen? Now, let's also go ahead and preface this by saying I've been in the business for 10 years, but I started a real estate investor meetup in my area and I ran it for 6 years. And through that, I got to meet a lot of people who are, as I often describe it, bright eyed and bushy tailed at the thought of investing in real estate. And some of them have gone off to supersede my expectations and find great results. But then there's a lot who, they struggled and got their own bumps and bruises. And so a lot of lessons for me to learn through it. So I'm really pulling from that experience as well as my own. So these are in no specific order. Let's get to it. So one common mistake that you want to avoid as a rookie is that this is something that I often see is that people, when they buy a property, whether it's to flip, to rent it out, to do whatever, is that you rehab it to your own taste versus the market's taste. Let me explain. So, for example, years ago, probably 8 years ago or something like that, I remember that I was looking at a house in a neighborhood, and this was probably the best example of this that I saw. And the market was starting to pick up, right? And so I had looked at making an offer on this property to flip it. And uh, long story short, I made the offer to the owner. It was like a hoarder situation. A real estate broker called me, said, Courtney, I don't even want to walk into that house. Are you interested? I was like, yeah, I'll make an offer. And they ended up deciding to sell to a family friend who they thought was going to live into it. Fun fact, family friend did not move into the house. They instead renovated it and flipped it. I digress. But like 4, 5 months later, another owner in the neighborhood came to my attention and wanted me to make an offer. Okay. Small neighborhood, maybe 30 houses total. And so when I ran comps, I was able to, when I was looking at what it sold, I found that house that they had fixed it up and sold it. So it was like something like that, within 6 months of the time that I had walked the house. So I knew what the house looked like before, and then I got to see what it looked like in its sold condition. And these folks who, again, bought it, renovated it, and sold it, they went in. These houses in this neighborhood were built in the 1990s. And you can tell they went into the kitchen and the bathrooms and I'm talking, they popped the countertops off and they replaced them. They did all these things. But when you look at it, compared to the other houses that sold in the similar price range, those other houses, their bathrooms and kitchens were, oops. Right. Congratulations, you got to hear my dogs. Now that I rectified that, but basically, when it came down to the sales price, the renovated bathroom and kitchen didn't get them any more than a non-renovated bathroom and kitchen. And so what did that mean? That means that they left money on the table, meaning they overpaid, they over renovated. And so this is very common. I like to call this HGTV syndrome, where everyone's like, but I want this to be the best bathroom, the best kitchen. And like, I always dreamed of the design side. And this is where my friends who love the design side can get in trouble when they go through the emotion of elevating the concept of design over the numbers. So what were the numbers saying? If you looked at the actual comps all throughout the neighborhood, it was not common to renovate the 1990s kitchens and bathrooms, and it wasn't getting you anything extra. So, granted, if you would have seen the data that said, hey, if you renovate it, you will get more, that's a different story. But I even look back, a year plus into the neighborhood, and I didn't see anything. So you want to be careful. You also don't want to make it quirky. Like if you're making it to your taste, you don't want, you know, oh, you know, whether it's your taste is very trendy or it's very singular. You don't want to either leave money on the table or you also don't want to eliminate a large pool of buyers by it being too quirky. I see that all the time. So don't rehab to your taste, rehab to the markets. All right. The second mistake I want you to avoid if you're a rookie is I don't want you to bite off too much at once, especially in your beginning deals. You know, for example, if you're looking at buying some rentals, the first few deals, you're still learning what it takes to buy a deal and close on it, right? You're learning what that process looks like. Additionally, I want to encourage you to, for example, maybe you're buying with creative financing. So that's a new thing that you're having to overcome and do and work through. And then obviously having tenants for the first time is a new thing, right? And so then if you throw into that a major gut rehab, just be careful that you don't bite off too much, right? So this could look like termite damage, fire damage, water damage, major foundation issues, a full gut. You know, I'm not saying wait and sit on the sidelines for paint and carpet, but at the same time, understand that there's plenty of times for you to learn and increase your skills down the road. But if you take off too big of a bite in the beginning, where you're having to learn too many things at once, how to actually do the deal, how to manage tenants, how to use that type of loan or that type of financing where you're structuring the deal, you know, and manage that big of a rehab. You want to be careful with that because, don't make it to where your eyes are bigger than your stomach can handle. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that, maybe you say, hey, I'm going to buy my first rental and I'm going to, let me buy my first rental. And maybe it has less of a rehab, but I'm buying it with creative financing. So I can spend my time focusing on the deal structure and getting my tenants once I close on it versus, again, having all those heavy things on your plate. Hope you're catching what I'm picking up what I'm putting down. The third mistake I want you to avoid as a rookie is, and this kind of goes along with what I just said, is that you don't want to just make a plan for acquisition, you want to make a plan for management, right? Whether that's project management for a flip or it is property management for a rental. It could be asset management where you are managing the managers. Whatever that may look like, don't just make a plan for how you're going to buy it. You need to make a plan for day 1. And you need to make a plan for day 30, day 90, day 365, right? Like there's a level there that when you tackle this deal, don't be like, man, we got to the closing table. No, now I can take a break. No, no, no. That's where the real fun starts. And so don't just make a plan for the acquisition, also make a plan for the management. Fourth, the fourth common mistake that I see rookies make that I want you to avoid, right? This is coming from this place of care. I want you to avoid these things. Is the golden rule is in real estate is trust but verify. So what are some ways that I see rookies don't do this? For example, they trust someone else's opinion on the numbers, meaning, the wholesaler, the realtor, the, whatever it may be. I want you to be an informed participant in that conversation. Let me see the data. Like, don't just be like, oh, well, someone said it's worth this, and someone said the rehab was this. Well, okay, what, like, are you looking at the supporting data? Are you agreeing with it? People all the time be like, oh, well, someone told me it was a good deal and then I bought it and it wasn't a good deal. No, no, no. Your life is your fault. That is up to you, right? Like, so you need to be able to have your hand um and really have your hand around those numbers and say, yeah, I agree with this, or no, I disagree because of this, and be again a knowledgeable participant in the conversation. This also looks like when the contractor says the job's done. Early on, yeah, I didn't know jack about squat when it came to contractors and stuff like that. So what did I do? I asked people who I knew things. I went and volunteered with Habitat on their builds just to get some construction experience and things like that. But then at the same time, you also want to make sure like your job, whether it's project management, whatever it may be, whatever it may be, at the end of the day, like I remember early on, I did my best to do quality control. If something didn't look right, I asked questions about it, right? Or maybe I had some people in my life who I could ask them questions about someone's work. At the same time, too, early on, I literally watched a dude who had his iPhone out and it was how to hang a door. And I walked in on him and he was watching it while trying to hang a door. And he kept screwing up like five of my doors, which, if you know, are like a few $100 a pop. And so when he messed them up, like that was a big deal. All right. So know that you need to trust but verify. If someone says the job's done, go look at it. I can't tell you how many times, like, one time I had a guy who put a roof on a property, and he goes, "Hey, can you cut me a check? We finished putting the roof on the property." I said, "Great." And I just happened to have a car full of stuff at that property that I need to bring for that property, and so I headed over there. It literally, I looked out. It just happened to be raining, and I'm unloading those items, and I run inside to kind of get out of the rain, and all of a sudden I look up, and it's raining inside the property. And so what did that do? That gave me an opportunity to say, "Hey, something ain't right." Especially before you cut checks, before you finalize a project, like you want to make sure that you are trusting but verifying. Obviously, I had to call in and say, "Hey, you want to know the good news or the bad news?" Right? So those are some thoughts there. The fifth mistake that I want you to avoid as a rookie. This is actually pretty common and pretty, I have to be careful of it myself. Okay. Because I think it can affect anyone in any level, not just rookies. I think all these things can, but definitely this one. It's the concept of, don't just go with who you're familiar with, go with who's qualified. And what does this mean? Well, hey, this is a realtor I know in that area. I'm going to use them to list this flip, right? Like, so for example, we've got a mobile home park right now that we're looking at selling. And sure, I could go with who's familiar, but most of the people I'm familiar, they sell houses, right? Are they the right fit to sell a commercial property? No, right? And so don't just go with who you're familiar with, but you want to go with actual skill, like who will get actual results. And it's a very common, like, yes, get a referral from people you know, who's using those folks, right? So like that level of familiarity is good, but like at the same time, just because you know them doesn't mean they're the best person for the job. So with that being said, be careful. Familiarity can breed, contentment, can breed complacency, and so you don't want that. With that being said, guys, these are my 5 tips for how what I suggest you should avoid as a real estate rookie. I'm curious your thoughts. If you're an experienced investor and you want to give some additional thoughts, put them in the comments below, guys. This is one video for the first 100 days of 2025. Every day I'm giving you a thought on a certain topic. See you tomorrow.